where's my card?
Oh no.
Rummage around through my wallet, can't find my debit card. Okay, I might have slipped, might have just be somewhere in the house. So I pay on my phone, Google Pay and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Come back, search everywhere for it, cannot find my card
Guys,
whatsoever.
I haven't been recording on Hindenburg.
You fucking idiot.
Hello, welcome to the first time we've recorded this intro. This is Goats, the podcast described by many of its guests as, quote, the greatest of all time, and described by Miss Saruthi Bala as, quote, the thumbs up emoji. This week, I'm joined as always by my two full-time friends and part-time podcasters, Vinny and Michael. Before I begin, there's a chance we've got a few new listeners after our episode with my amazing boss, colleague and friend, Saru. So welcome to the show. This is Goats, the show where each week we crown the greatest of all time of a specific subject. And that's my cat. Okay. This week, my two esteemed colleagues will have just 15 minutes to convince me that they have picked the greatest cold case of all time. Also, heads up, might not seem like 15 minutes to you because I'll probably cut a load of it out because it'll be shit. But before we get to that, how are you both doing? Michael, you're looking a lot better.
I am better, yes. After spending the last 7 days in bed on the precipice of death, I just, for some reason yesterday afternoon, I was like, maybe I'm not ill anymore, maybe I'm fine. And now I'm fine. Today I've just been like normal, I'm just fine again, like just not ill.
I do have a bit of a personal question about your time ill.
Yes.
What would you say was your XW for the for the 7 days that you've spent in bed?
My expected what?
Expected wanks.
0. Too ill to wank.
Zero.
That's low.
Yeah, that is low. Sorry. That's not getting me a big move anytime soon.
We're saying expected wanks per 90, not just wanks per 90.
Oh,
expected
wanks per 90, 0. Expected wank, no, 0. I was not
What?
in a wanking mood. I was dying.
If I had 7 days off, no matter how ill I was, I'd be at like...
I know, 20.
It'd be a wank fest.
I'd be at like 3 XW per day. Min.
Per 90 mins.
Per 90 mins.
I know you would, but not me. That's like the first time I've ever been ill for more than like 12 hours, and it was bizarre.
Yeah, it's not like you to get ill for more than 12 hours is the record before then.
It's also not like you to not wank for 7 days. Jesus.
I know. I'm generally a massive wanker.
You could say that.
And swing. Nothing but that.
Yeah.
V-Dog, how are you doing?
I am fuming.
Oh.
What's happening?
Oh dear.
What's happened? I can't wait to get into this.
You're like that. Have you seen the video of that woman who's like, whoever nicked my daughter's buggy, I'm raging. I'm in major raging. Her eyes pop out. Have you never seen that video?
No.
Right, I'll link it. While you talk, I'll send it to the Discord. It's hilarious.
Okay. So story time. So yesterday afternoon, I go out, I get some lunch, and I go to pay, but I can't find my debit card. It's not my wallet. Okay, fair enough. I'll just pay with my phone, Google Pay. The future's here and all that. So I go home. I look for my debit card, and I just cannot find it anywhere. And I'm like texting my friend who, like, I remember the last time I saw him. That's the last time I remember getting my debit card out. And was like, "Is it in your car or whatever?" And he looked and he was like, "Couldn't find it." So I was like, "Okay, inconvenient, but I'll just get a replacement card sent to my house. That's fine, So I tried to get a replacement card sent, but because it's still, my card still is like, the address is still at my parents' house all the way down in Exeter.
Oh,
so I was like, well, I don't want that to happen. So I get on like a chat support with them, and I'm like, hey, so I've lost my debit card. Could I just get a new one sent to my current address? Because the address is like old. And they said I had to have like done it 60 days in advance, like changed my address on my bank 60 days in advance for them to send it to the new address.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. It does make sense.
But I was like, is there anything you can work out? And they said, well, we could send it to the branch, the bank branch in Exeter. And I was like, that's not really making it better.
That's no better.
That's no better. In fact, that's worse. So they said, okay, I'll go talk to my manager and I'll come back to you. And I'm like, yeah, okay, fair enough. Like 5 minutes later, comes back and they're just like, yeah, so we've sent the debit card, your new debit card, to the bank branch in Exeter. The fucking words that made me so pissed off. As requested. Requested. And I just said, I didn't request that.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I didn't request it. And they were like, sorry, we can't change it now. What the fuck? Absolute bollocks. Absolute bullshit.
Listeners, good to know. If you go into the Exeter branch of Lloyd's and say, hi, I'm Vinny and I've got a card waiting, you probably max out
and grab
Vinny's debit. So good to know.
Expect it in 5 days.
I hate to side with the bankers of the world, but to be fair, you probably should have changed your address with your bank when you moved to Bristol, because they're obviously not going to send it to you, because I could find your card on the floor and be like, oh yeah mate, just send it to me new address, innit? And they'll be like, oh, don't worry about it.
No, that's not the problem I have with it. Like, fair enough, they have that, I understand why they have this policy, but the fucking as requested, when I didn't fucking say,
that's outrageous, mate.
It's ridiculous. And now it's just more inconvenient, because then I'll have to go down to Exeter and then like find my local branch, go in there. I've never been in my local branch before. I don't even know what information I'm supposed to provide. I don't.
Just bring your driver's license and then just show your ID. You're right.
Yeah.
Give a pack on the cheek. But yeah, other than that, I'm good.
That's only a minor inconvenience. I thought it was going to be like you'd had your card swiped or something and like all your cash is gone, and I'd have been like, oh, fair play, that's pretty bad.
Nah, that'd be fucking shit, because I don't have anything anymore.
No, my partner Lucy's left her purse on the bus by accident, and obviously there's no such thing as a good Samaritan anymore. Fucking got nibbed, and luckily she froze her card straight away as soon as she realised it had gone, so no money was spent. But there was something slightly just disheartening about watching her get all these texts, and it was just so tragic. Like, it went from like someone's tried to spend £89 at Amazon to like, oh, someone's tried to spend £2.50 at KFC. And then the last one was someone's tried to spend 50p at Poundland. Oh, God. Oh, no.
They're thinking, like, if I spend the smallest amount, they're not going to notice.
It's just so tragic.
Oh, dear. Wonder what the 89 quid was on.
I don't know, but I tried to say that to Lucy. I was like, in a way, it's a bit of a reflection on society. And she was like, fuck off. Someone's trying to spend my money.
Yeah, I agree with Lucy.
I was like, yeah, all right, fair play. Anyway, I've got nothing to talk about, which is a shocker for me. So shall we begin?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This week, we've got a bit of an unusual one. A slightly niche pick, if you will. But one that I'm excited to delve into all the same. Cold cases. Defined in the Oxford English Dictionary as a rigid insulated container for keeping food or drink cool, often used to transport perishable goods that would otherwise become inedible. Cold cases can also be used for the transport and safekeeping of vital organs in the medical industry. So that's the definition of a cold case. But which is best? Exactly, Michael's got one at the ready. Which is best? The Coleman 50QT Extreme Wheeled Cooler that was voted best in class, or the new up-and-comer, the Van Gogh Pinnacle 321? There's only one way to find out. So who's going first?
I'll go first.
Okay, V-Dog, you go first.
Also, I'm just... You had to do a bit. When you're the fucking host, you have to do a bit.
I am, of course, joshing with you. That's what I've written in my script. We're not talking about cool boxes. We're talking about unsolved crimes left open, pending pending the discovery of new evidence, a space that I am somewhat of an expert in, and therefore I am judging as the most qualified among us. As everyone knows, working in the true crime space
Ghosts.
makes me not only an expert, but I am legally allowed to investigate crimes and diagnose their perpetrators. But seriously, nothing grips a nation like an unsolved mystery. Whether it's a murder that's never been pinned or a missing person that's never been found, we love a cold case. So much so that is literally why I get paid. So really, who's going first?
Me.
V Diddly Dog, you're up, mate.
Right, you got the timer?
No.
What were the chances that I just had a little cold box fridge next to me as Seb did his bit?
You are in your garage at the moment, so it's a pretty big chance.
No, but I've only just recently got that for the campaign.
Have you?
I've not had it sat there long.
God's sake, go on then.
It's a great little
Seb, just get
coincidence.
rid of your cat. Just fucking do it. Just
I'm not booting my cat. Can you imagine as well, in a minute, Michael's like, you're going to be talking about a dead body, and Michael will be like, what are the chances? I've got one in my garage.
full up a skeleton.
Pulls out this corpse, yeah.
What's the chance I have a dead kid in my garage? This is mad, honestly.
Why is it that skeletons are always
In
up
closets.
to no good? Why is it that they're always associated with evil deeds?
Menacing. Spooky.
It reminds me of that bit where in that Mitchell and Webb look where he's like talking about the skull and crossbones on the SS cap. And he's like, maybe it's just a proud Aryan head. And he's like, you have to admit, normally that's depicted with the skin on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Right, you ready, Seb?
yes, I am ready when V-Dog is. V-Diddly Dog, are you ready? Ready.
I'm ready, sir.
Well, carry on.
The 90s was a huge decade. What are you going to chime in with, Seb? I can see you leaning forward.
No, I just love the 90s.
Oh, okay, that's good. All right.
Can I just say, I hate when people say I love the 90s. Like, oh, I love the 90s. You were born in 1997, Seb.
You can still enjoy 90s culture.
I just feel nostalgic for it, Michael.
You don't remember it. You can't feel nostalgic for it. I don't feel nostalgic for World War One just because I'm interested in it. What are you talking about?
No, I said I loved it. If you say
you weren't there.
no, yeah, you weren't in the fucking Hobbit, you little dick. When you go, I love the Hobbit, I'm not like, well, you weren't there, were you? You've never met Gandalf. You're just imagining, you little prick.
Nah, I just don't like it when people my age are like, oh, I'm such a 90s kid. And I'm like, well, you're not.
Well, that's not what I said, is it? So fucking wind your neck in. Vinny, carry on. Honestly, prick.
Okay.
Get over that.
The 90s was a huge decade for the American music industry. Gone were the flashy and bright 80s filled with neon colours and glam rock bands who in equal parts shredded their electric guitars as much as they did enough cocaine to make Steve-O blush. Instead, we were greeted with a completely opposite image. Bands like Pearl Jam and Nirvana made it big with their more bleak and raw take on rock music in grunge. The choice of party drug went from the egotism that cocaine gave many to the feelings of love and empathy that ecstasy brought with it. But there was a completely new genre sweeping the states of the time that had been slowly seeping into the mainstream throughout the 1980s, but reached a golden age in the 90s. And of course, I'm talking about folk country
Dubstep.
dubstep.
Oh, mate. Moby.
Skrillex has got a new album out.
No, of course, I'm talking about hip-hop.
Ricka.
Dre and Snoop Dogg were pioneering the G-funk style, mixing gangster rap with the futuristic sounds of the psychedelic funk bands from the 1970s. Nas was raising the bar with his clever wordplay and his silky smooth flow, whilst Outkast, they were holding it down with their own southern style, full of double-time hi-hats and thick, juicy grooves to dance to. But almost no other rapper from the 90s was bigger than Tupac Shakur. Born in East Harlem to the name Lassane Parish Crooks, his parents actually decided to rename him at age 1 to Tupac Amaru Shakur after the last Incan ruler who was executed by the Spanish after a failed revolt in the 18th century. Yeah, I know, it's crazy, right?
Oh, that is creepy.
But why did they... Was there any reason for it, or they were just like, that sounds cool?
Well, I was about to say, because they wanted his name to be the name of a revolutionary, because at the time, Tupac's parents were both members of the Black Panther.
Mm.
And his upbringing in the ghetto to two Black Panther parents absolutely had a huge impact on his worldview. And it's not untrue to say the man was completely larger than life. Of course, he was mostly known for his rapping, but there was something more to him that people gravitated towards. He spoke a lot about civil rights and the injustices of America at the time. He used his music as a vehicle to help raise awareness of the issues facing many Black Americans. Well, Tupac was more than a rapper, he was an icon. A man of the people, a champion of the masses. He even survived a shooting in 1994, leading many to believe the man was simply indestructible. But that's why, when the news broke out that Tupac Shakur had passed away due to bullet wounds suffered from a drive-by shooting, the whole world was utterly stunned. And what's more stunning is the fact that the murder of the second highest selling rapper of the 90s has still yet to be solved to this day. So what happened?
He got shot.
I don't fucking know. Nobody does.
Right.
Yeah, you can stop my timer now.
I remember some... Because I did an essay in college about the golden age of hip-hop.
Yeah.
And I think I did about the 90s, actually. And... yeah, I did quite a lot about the Tupac shooting. Wasn't there was a, you might go into this, but wasn't there like a police officer who was like the main suspect or something? Charles Poole or something like that, I think his name was, something like that. Or maybe he was the guy who shot Biggie, I can't remember. There was definitely a police officer who was like a suspect in one of those shootings.
I think it was Biggie's killing where there was something to do with a dirty cop. I think that's Biggie's killing. I didn't come across any like dirty cops with Tupac's murder.
No, maybe it's Biggie then.
Yeah.
But we all know it was Suge Knight anyway.
Well, I'll get onto that.
Yeah, it is Biggie, yeah. Russell Poole, that's it. That's who they believe may have shot Biggie.
But yeah, so what happened that we do know? So, on the night of the 7th of September 1996, Tupac was in Las Vegas watching Bruce Seldon take on the mighty Iron Mike. And the fight didn't even make it to 2 minutes before Tyson delivered a knockout blow to Bruce, which is apparently like one of the quickest heavyweight champion fights ever. It's like 1:49. Crazy.
Yeah, pretty quick.
But afterwards, Tupac was in the lobby with his friends when one of his friends basically spotted a man in the same lobby by the name of Orlando Anderson. Now, Anderson had allegedly tried to steal Tupac's friend's medallion in a shopping mall recently, and he was also an alleged member of the Compton Crips, who were, and I think still are, fierce rivals of Tupac's gang at the time, the Piru Bloods. So upon seeing this man, they all jumped him, and they beat Anderson within an inch of his life before security took them off him. And later that night, around 11:15 p.m., Tupac was being driven around Las Vegas by his record label manager, Suge Knight. Is it Suge Knight or Suge Knight?
Suge Knight, isn't it?
Suge Knight, I think.
Oh, it's Suge Knight, yeah, right. Blah, 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 blah. Later that night, at about 11:15 p.m., Tupac was being driven around Las Vegas by his record label manager, Suge Knight. What did I say? What was it again?
Suge Knight.
It's not a H in it, but it's definitely Suge Knight.
Okay, Suge Knight. Okay, whoever's editing that will just have to make that work. Suge Knight, Suge Knight, Suge Knight, Suge Knight. Okay, I've got it. When a 4-door white Cadillac sedan pulled up at a traffic light, I shouldn't laugh, and unloaded 13 shots into Tupac's car. Shakur was struck 4 times, once in the arm, another in the thigh, but fatally 2 in the chest, and one of those piercing his left lung. Police officer Chris Carroll was the first to the scene, and he repeatedly asked Tupac who had shot him, but Tupac's last words, or only words, were "fuck you," before he passed out and was rushed to the nearest hospital.
Really?
Yeah.
Bit ag, mate. Bit ag.
What was all that about? Maybe he didn't want to grass, or
Maybe.
maybe it was
maybe
like, maybe
Snitches get stitches, and he's like, you're
Nah.
gonna die.
I think it
maybe.
was because it was someone he knew. He knew Suge had like ordered this hit, so he was like, it was like anger. It was like, oh fuck you for doing this to me.
You
No,
know,
but Suge didn't ask. It was the police officer.
Yeah, but he was obviously dazed and confused, and he was just angry about the whole situation. He's like, I can't believe I've just been set up and been shot. Like, fuck you to the world. Like,
He's like, I can't believe you've done this.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like seriously, that could have been it.
well, yeah, who fucking knows? Because basically, during the 6 days that he spent at the University Medical Center of Southern Nevada, he was barely conscious and was hooked up to life support. And sadly, on the September 13th, he died in the afternoon due to internal bleeding, not being able to tell anyone who had done the deed. I think "fuck you" might have been his last words in that case.
It's badass.
It's
But yeah,
crazy.
to this day, the case remains largely unsolved. But there are still suspects worth mentioning. Obviously, Orlando Anderson, for starters, he was the prime suspect during the investigation, the initial investigation at least. He was known to be in the area at the time, and obviously he had a motive. You know, Tupac and his buddies beat the shit out of him earlier that night. But people who knew Anderson said that although he was affiliated with the Crips, he had no previous criminal record, and he himself was a huge fan of Tupac's music. Nevertheless, he was acquitted by the police, and before he could be questioned any further, he was himself murdered 2 years later in a gang-related shootout in Compton, California.
Damn.
In 2011, former LAPD detective Craig Kading released a book alleging that Puff Daddy himself had commissioned Anderson's uncle to kill the former rapper as well as Suge Knight for $1 million. In a recorded conversation, Anderson's uncle claimed Anderson was with him in the car during the shooting, and he was the one who had fired the fatal shots as well. Now, accounts independently reported that Anderson was indeed in the back seat of the Cadillac and had shot Tupac. However, another reporter by the name of Chuck Phillips in 2002 also investigated all of this and found, well, he said that the $1 million bounty wasn't actually offered by Puff Daddy, but by Tupac's East Coast rival at the time, Notorious B.I.G. There are also a lot of theories saying that Suge Knight did it, just like Mork's been talking about. It was well known at the time that Tupac was planning on leaving Death Row Records, and people suggest that if Suge couldn't have the rap star, nobody could. And although Suge Knight was injured during the shootout, he got sort of grazed on his head. Nothing was fatal, meaning the gunman could have missed him on purpose.
Yeah.
And there was also a question of why it was just Tupac and Suge Knight in the car without the usual bodyguards to drive them around. It was just the two of them. All of this could have been carefully orchestrated to take out Tupac at his peak so that they could make more money selling posthumous records, which they did, so yeah. We may never know what exactly happened on that fateful night, but what we do know is the impact of Shakur's death completely shook. That's not really a pun. Shook the foundations of the rap scene.
Suge Knight.
Yeah, as soon as I said, I was like, shook. Yeah. Completely shook the foundations of the rap scene and robbed us of robbed us of more years of Tupac fighting the system and coming out with catchy hood classics for us white folk to bop to. And not only this, but Suge Knight blamed the Tupac shooting on Biggie Smalls and thus allegedly paid for him to be shot and killed as well, which is what happened 6 months after Tupac's shooting. So, why do I think Tupac being shot is the GOAT cold case? You ask me. And you haven't asked me, but I'm imagining you're asking me.
Vinny, why do you think that Tupac is the GOAT cold case? His death specifically, not just his existence?
That's a great question, Sebek, from the GOATs podcast. So first of all, it's a killing of one of the most famous musicians of the past 30 years. Like I said, he was the second highest selling rapper of the 90s. The only person who was higher selling was Biggie Smalls.
Yeah.
So they were like very close up to the top all the way through the 90s. Which is crazy because Biggie Smalls only released one album while he was alive, but yeah.
I know, that's crazy. There's so many there's a few posthumous albums and greatest and collaboration stuff that I get so confused as to what came out when he was alive, because there's loads of Biggie music out there. There's fucking loads. But then I realized again, he only recorded and released one during his life. That's nuts.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. Second thing, Tupac's death potentially led to the murder of his rival, Biggie, who again was also like equally as iconic, to be honest.
And it's also unsolved.
Yeah, well, the fact that it hasn't been and maybe never will be solved to this day, despite the murder taking place in a heavily populated city. You know, it's like it's 11 o'clock in Las Vegas. Like, surely there's lots of people who would have seen.
It's like the middle of the
happened.
day, basically. There's fucking loads of people everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy, and like it'll probably never be solved because I think half the people who are connected with this case are dead. So
or in prison.
Dead.
Suge's never gonna admit it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you did it. That's just a theory, but but yeah, that's it. I'm done.
I heard that he wasn't dead and he was in Cuba chilling with Hitler and Elvis.
I heard he was in Serbia.
I don't know. Also, I don't know if he'd chill with Hitler. I don't know if they would vibe.
Chilling with Hitler.
No, but like everybody who's ever disappeared to Cuba, you know, Queen Elizabeth II,
Adolf
Tupac.
Hitler. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
Didn't really work. Well, that's really interesting. I feel like the death of Tupac Shakur and his murder is one of those sort of cases that is so ingrained in like pop culture, and I think it sounds horrible to say, but he's one of those people who is, I can't think of a better way. He's iconic for dying. He's iconic for being killed. He was obviously hugely popular at the time, but like that, his death brought him to like a stratospheric level of fame, and he's kind of been like turned into a bit of a, you know,
he's a martyr. If he was alive, rap would be better kind of person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he's one of those people you always see in the comments like, oh, you know, take Justin Bieber and give us back Tupac. Like people, he's just like, he's become the symbol of like, oh, what could have been and things like that. I mean, you know, similar to a lot of people like Kurt Cobain and, you know, all of these guys. Big L.
Biggie.
And in a way,
Eminem.
you know,
Eminem.
Big Pun.
Eminem's career died a long time ago.
No, but Eminem's the epitome of what happens if you don't die. You just live to be shit. You know?
Oh, no. 45-year-old man getting angry at these like 20-year-olds for making music you don't agree with. Mate, 50. What the fuck? Why is he still rapping?
He's 50. He's probably older. He's only like 51 now.
He's got grandkids. Like, chill.
Just chill, man. I like him. I actually quite like some of his more recent music, but I know
he's 51.
That's a controversial opinion.
And a wrong one.
I don't know. I liked some of Kamikaze. I thought it was good. I thought it was a good album. But anyway, I know you think it was poorly sound mixed or whatever, but I just think
it was horribly mixed. Well, they're like unlistenable. They're so washy. I was like, this can't be real. This is like I was like, my phone must be fucked. This can't be real.
I like that. Look, he did a good track with Joyner Lewis. I thought it was good. Anyway, I think that was really, really interesting. I think that's a great shout. I think it's not necessarily what you'd think of. It's not when you think of Tupac's death, you don't almost think of it as a cold case, but it absolutely is. I mean, it's gone cold. I don't know if the investigation is still open, but obviously that's the more technical definition of what a cold case is. It's kind of always will still be open. Like if more evidence emerged, then obviously it would be reopened. It's going to be around for ages. Now, obviously, often we do a middle bit. And sometimes it's a quiz, but I thought that this was a bit of a more sensitive topic, and it felt like a maybe slightly insensitive, as it were, to be like, hey, let's have a zany quiz about all these people who've gone missing and never been found. So
how many?
Exactly. How many days have they been gone? No. So I thought rather than do that, to kind of add a little bit of levity is that the right word?
Sure.
A little bit of levity, maybe a little bit of humour, bring things back to the sort of more joyous end of the GOAT spectrum. I thought I would ask you, what are some real life, quote unquote, cold cases or unsolved mysteries in your life? What's something that's happened to you? Please don't do something really dark. Just like, I don't know who took that Pokemon card, not like, I don't know who killed my mum or something. Let's keep it light. I can go first. Mine's a little bit dull, but it does genuinely, this is a mystery I think about honestly every day, which is what is in my finger. So when I was when I was 14, I was trying to impress my English class, which is full of ladies. And basically the class was locked. And I thought, do you know what would be really cool? Is if I got in from the outside through an outside window and opened it up, and everyone would be like, oh my God, Seb, you're amazing. So I tried to push a window open from outside, and it broke. And it cut through several tendons and an artery in my hand, which I would say was not a success. However, it did make me a bit of a big man around campus. So, long term.
Have you seen how much blood Seb's got in him?
No, honestly, it's fucking everywhere. It was grim. And, maybe I don't have use of one of my fingers that well, but it's my little finger. What kind of hindrance is that? However, inside my little finger, you can't really see it on the camera. It's a bit difficult. You can see it's a little bit mangled maybe, but there's this little lump that clicks when I move it, and I can kind of click it around. Ooh. And when I push really hard, it's like a little black dot. Like I can see there's something in there. And I think about cutting it out every day. I think about cutting it out. It bothers me so much. Luce has honestly walked in on me with a knife, being like,
"Let's do it."
If you clipped that'd sound quite bad, wouldn't it? Luce has walked in on me about to cut it out, like before. Yeah. Like, cut it out, I mate. Get so bothered by it. And the best bit is, I think I could do it because of the minor. It was more of like a capillary artery. It wasn't like a real bad one, but because of the arterial damage, if I hold my hand up above my head for long enough, the fingers and the bit of my hand that are still numb to this day because of the nerve damage. If I hold it up long enough, I just lose all feeling in that side of my hand, like completely, like it's completely gone.
Wow.
Like it's just like a bit of floppy skin. So I could definitely cut into it without feeling it. Like I wouldn't be able to feel it at all. And I think about that a lot. So that's my cold case.
Well, let's do it live on the pod. What's in Seb's finger? It'll just be like a part. It'll just be like a bit of your bone or something.
Yeah, probably.
Well, the thing is, it's like dark black. I think what it could be is the pin that they used to pin back one of my tendons that had been cut. Maybe.
Oh, it's probably like part of. It's probably meant to be in there. It's probably like pinning your finger together. Yeah, but it's gonna move, innit? Your body's like fluid.
I know. I shouldn't cut it out.
Actually, don't cut it out. Yeah, your whole finger will fall off.
Anyway, What are your guys' cold cases?
The only mystery I could think of is the mystery of why my dad never loved me.
Oh, that's not a mystery. Have you seen it?
Sorry, Seb. I only just thought of that when you were like nothing dark. I was like, oh, here we go. Nah, no, genuinely, I can actually really think of any because unlike everyone I know, I don't lose things very often. Like I'm not like a massive loser. Like everyone I know just loses everything.
I mean, you are a massive loser.
Yeah, but like Vinny lost his card the other day. Like my girlfriend's losing her card. Like there was a point where it was like she lost it 3 or 4 times in the space of like 6 months, and I was like, what's going on? Like you said, Seb, that Lucy loses a lot of stuff all the time. Like just silly things like, oh, I've lost my glasses, and it's like they're on your head, mate. Stuff like that. I'm generally like I've never lost my phone or my wallet or my keys or anything like that. But I could only think of one thing that I ever lost, and I was fucking raging about for ages. And that was my Pokemon Emerald cart. Because on my Pokemon Emerald cart, I'd like Rayquaza like level 90 or something. It's like the closest I ever got to 100.
Do you know he's supposed to be called?
I couldn't believe I lost it.
Do you know he's supposed to be called Rayquaza? Is that horrible to find out? Like, when I found that, I was like, I don't believe that, but it's true.
Do you know what
Rayquaza.
That's a really interesting...
Because it's like a quasar, like the celestial body, the quasar.
That fucking sucks.
Yeah, no, it does, doesn't it?
Interesting little bit of knowledge, Vinny. But it also sounds like you're deflecting and taking some of the eyes away from the fact that Michael's Pokemon Emerald card went missing. And I would say if there was a prime suspect for that, it would be
Suge Knight.
He's
back out again.
Yeah.
The fuck
no, it's you, Vinny, you motherfucker. I know you took it because we would play Pokemon together every single day. Like I guarantee that card was in my possession and your possession at the same time. Like for the majority of our childhood. So I didn't lose it because I just said I don't lose shit. You said you lost your bank card, so you're a massive loser. So you fucking got it. I won it.
Well, I was thinking because I remember like when I was like 12 years old, my Game Boy Micro went missing, and I've never been able to find it to this day. So I'm wondering if maybe the emerald's inside the Micro.
Oh, you motherfucker! You took it, put it in there, and you said for all this time that you lost it.
Yeah, I have.
Get it out now. No, you haven't. It's probably underneath your pillow. You play every night, like, haha, that motherfucker's Rayquaza's mine. You probably released him.
I definitely released him. What would you do, right, if Vinny got it back? He was like, I'm really sorry, this has just gone on for too long.
Yeah. And
then he gave it to you back, but the whatever he's called, Rayquaza.
Green Dragon.
I hate the name.
He got rid of it. Like everything was still there, but he just released that one Pokemon.
You know what? I'd forgive him. I'd really like that back. Actually, it's like the only thing I've ever lost. I would like it back.
I've actually got anything you ever loved.
No.
Nah, football's the only thing I've ever loved.
Football's the only thing I've ever loved. Yeah.
I've actually got like a strange cold case, like mystery, and it just popped into my head just then.
Oh.
This is probably absolute bollocks, but like I remember when I was really young. I must have been like 8 or 9 years old. I remember I was sat in my I guess at the time it was the living room, my parents' living room, and my mum was like doing my tie, getting ready for getting ready for school because I was a little autistic 8-year-old who didn't know how to do his tie. And I remember seeing like a bright light in the sky because while I was facing the window, like a big bright light was like, whoa, like was like, and it like went into my eyes and I was like, oh, what is that? And no, this is all true. I remember this so vividly.
Okay, yeah.
And then on the bus to school that day, I was talking to people, fellow kids, say they're fellow kids, and they were all like, "Yeah, we saw like some crazy bright light as well this morning."
How crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Was it just the sun?
It might have just been the sun, and it might have just been like, "Yeah, we saw something as well." Fucking, why is Vinny talking to us?
Vinny's seen the sun again.
He's been allowed out of the dungeons.
You're never gonna believe it.
I don't like it. It's too bright.
I'm just staring at it like, ah!
Give me nutrients.
Mate, throwback. Oh, that was brilliant. Well, on that note, now we've all had a good laugh, release those endorphins. Let's talk about something horrible. Michael, who have you chosen?
Right.
For the what have you chosen? Because it could be a what.
It is a what.
Could be where's the Titanic?
Where's Waldo?
No.
Where's Waldo? Wally.
Everyone knows the Titanic. We've discovered the Titanic. That's not a cold case. I was thinking that the other day actually about the
cold
Titanic.
It's the bottom of the sea.
Yeah, no, but that was rubbish. I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, the Titanic, is it a mystery? And I was like, it's not a mystery. They know where it is. They know like what happened. I just for some reason always felt like the Titanic was all shrouded in mystery, but it's actually not, is it? It's just like straight up, it fucking sank. Like that's what happened. I was like,
the Titanic went bye, Titanic.
Right, my cold case is the disappearance of Seb's comedy.
It was here just a minute ago. I swear he was funny. I swear he used to be a funny lad.
I swear he was funny. Oh dear. No.
Right.
Are you ready?
Timer up.
You ready?
Yeah. The cold case
Go!
I've chosen is Eminem's dead career. No.
Alright, get your one bit out of the way.
Right. I actually started this by saying I'm not going to do any fakery and say like, oh, the curious case of fucking Benjamin Button, mate, that's like the shit that I've done, because nah, like this one was just so simple. Like as soon as I read the thing, what we were doing, I was like, oh, it's obvious. And it's the case of a small girl who disappeared in 2007. Of course, I'm talking about Madeleine McCann. Now, I could probably just end this whole presentation right now because everyone knows what it is, and that is obviously the Goat cold case. But I'm not going to do that. I'll talk for a bit.
Good.
So, this is the most famous disappearing persons case in modern history for sure. But what happened? Well, very quickly, I'll try and go through the case because everyone knows what happened. But what happened? Jerry and Kate McCann, who are Madeleine's parents, were on holiday in Portugal with some friends and their 3 children. They had a pair of twins and Madeleine. On Thursday night, the penultimate night of their holiday, I think, they put the kids to bed like they've done before, and they went to eat at the local tapas bar as part of like the complex while the kids were asleep. Now, the walk from the apartment they were staying in to the bar was around 82 meters. Along a public footpath, around the pool, and then into the bar. So, not miles away, but it's not exactly next door. Now, the doors to the apartment, there was a front door, and then the sliding doors that they used all the time. The sliding doors, they could only be locked from the inside. So, once you had to lock yourself inside the apartment, you couldn't lock it from the outside. So, they just decided to leave them unlocked and close them so they could get in and out. And then around every hour or so, one person, because they were with quite a big group, so there were always people walking backwards and forwards from the bar to each apartment, because they had a few apartments, to check on everyone's kids or whatever. Mm-hmm. So Jerry went to go and check on the children at around 11, and everyone was asleep, although he claims that the door was slightly open when he went in to go and check them. and that he remembers it being fully shut, like obviously when he shut it and they walked to the bar initially. So that, is something strange, I suppose. And then another one of the parents went to go and check, and then at around 11 p.m, Kate went to go and check and noticed that the door to Madeline's room was wide open. Now, she didn't actually go in and see why it was open. The door...
'Cause why would you? Why would you,
Yeah, so
just your kid.
Yeah, the door just slammed shut, which was caused by a draft because the window was apparently open or something. Now, again, this is not ever going to be verified because it's only come from her mouth. And because of that, she went into the room and realised that she was missing her, soft toy and a blanket were on the bed, but Madeline was missing. So she ran back from the apartment, leaving her twins in there alone after another child's been abducted for some reason. Ran back to the restaurant screaming that she'd been taken. Now, it seems simple enough, right? A child's been abducted. This happens, unfortunately, a lot in the world. A hell of a lot. So why this particular case is so massive? Well, and I've slightly glossed over it as well. It's when you start to really look into the details that it gets more and more complicated the further you go. It's like a rabbit hole. When you get into the nitty-gritty of this case, it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And for me, there are three main factors why this case got so big, why we're talking about it on this podcast, and it wasn't just another missing child's case. Because I couldn't name you another missing child ever in recorded history who's gone missing, but I can tell you everything about Madeleine McCann. And
Funny that.
all three of these reasons are kind of intertwined. And the three reasons are the involvement of the parents, the media and public reaction, and the event and the investigations themselves. So, firstly, the parents' involvement. And I've put here, what? I hear you say? How could they be involved? Well, one of the very first lines of inquiry and the biggest parts of the initial investigation was to determine whether or not they, in fact, accidentally killed her and disposed of the body. Which sounds mental. Now, the theories were that there was some kind of accident, so not intentional, not murder. Perhaps a sedation gone wrong. The parents had given the children sleeping pills, and then when Maddie had accidentally died from the sleeping pills, they tried to cover it up. Now, this is a wild accusation, so where's the evidence? Where did it come from? Well, the parents are both doctors, so maybe they could have had access to such medication and felt safe using such medication on children. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, so I'm not a doctor, I wouldn't give my children sleeping pills, but if you were a doctor, you might be like, well, I know how much to give them, it's all fine, I know what I'm doing. There was no evidence of a break-in or an abduction, really, so perhaps it was all done internally. And there were some very dubious results from some sniffer dogs which suggested maybe some blood trace in the apartment. But these are very heavily criticised and very dubious results. And also, some of Jerry and Kate's statements had major inconsistencies, maybe suggesting they were just making it all up. Or they could have been very stressed out because their child's been taken. Personally, I think that the notion that they accidentally killed her is just complete bollocks. And which is weird because for the longest time I thought they'd done it. Like that's what happened and that's, they'd done it. It seemed to add up to me. But now I'm a parent and I'm older, it's even more ridiculous and nonsense when you actually look at it logically. What would have had to have happened if they would have had to have perfectly disposed of a body and not leave one shred of evidence in a busy holiday apartment block on the fly like that, like at the snap of a finger, have had to have orchestrated this, because she would have just dropped dead if it was an accident. It wouldn't have been planned out. They wouldn't have been able to sit down and plan how they were going to dispose of it. She would have gone, oh fuck, she's dead, right. Action stations, bang. Let's perfectly execute the perfect crime with no prior preparation or thought and do it instantly. That seems madness. Also, they'd have had to have convinced every single one of their friends, gone up to them and said, I've accidentally killed my daughter, please can you lie for me for the rest of my life and cover it up while I go and dispose of her body while they're all having dinner. Not going to happen. No one in their right mind is going to say, oh yeah, no worries, accidents happen, fair play, right, see you in an hour, are they? Mental. Someone would have talked. And lastly, they'd have to been absolute psychopaths to have accidentally killed their daughter, covered it up all in the same instant, and convinced a group of other psychopaths to cover it up for them, and not just screamed and cried and put it down to an accident and lost their minds and not known what the fuck to do, and people would have seen. So for me, no, that's wrong. However, I personally do not believe they are completely innocent of any wrongdoing whatsoever. I don't think they did anything on purpose or covered it up, and I definitely don't think they did anything necessarily malicious. But I do think they may be guilty of some negligence. And I'll give you an example. I, as it's well known, have a 3-year-old. Sometimes we're in the car together, and I need to go into the shop and get milk or, I don't know, fucking ciggies. I don't smoke. But I just get to think of something.
A vape.
Ciggies for the 3-year-old.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's a heavy smoker.
Yeah. 50 a day, mate. So I get to the shop. I'm literally going to be 2 seconds. It's the smallest, quietest village in the world. They don't even have electricity here, right? I'm going to be 2 seconds getting in the shop. Do I really have to get them out and faff around, getting them in and out of their car seat when they don't want to? I could just lock them in the car. No one could get to them. I just go into the shop. The car's going to be locked. Even if someone tried to get them out, they'd have to break a window or smash something. No one's going to do that in broad daylight. If someone tried to break into my car in broad daylight, someone's going to stop them as they drag my screaming 3-year-old out of the window. But you know what? I still don't do that. I still get them out of the car, walk them into the shop, get the milk, walk back out, put them back in the car, because it just feels wrong to leave them there by themselves. Let alone leave them asleep in an unlocked apartment block in a foreign country while I have dinner and drink with my mates nearly 100 meters away. Crazy. I know.
It is
silence.
It's one of
in the
those
room.
things where you wonder how they got to that point.
Yeah.
I always think, because we've covered this in a couple of different instances for red-handed, and I always it's a really bizarre one, and you kind of think how did they get to a point where they thought that was okay? Because it's so clearly such a bad idea, and not just because your kid could be abducted, but because you shouldn't be leaving. What was it? There was Maddie, her sister. There was about 5 kids in total being left on their own, including
not their children, but other parents' children.
But other parents in the same apartment block. And you're thinking, how do you get to a point where you think, you wouldn't leave your kid asleep in your house with all the doors locked. Why would you do that? Some of them are really young. Even regardless of
anything, you just wouldn't
abductions,
do it.
You don't leave kids on their own.
No.
It just
it's a weird thing to do.
To me, it just feels bad. It just it just feels weird and bad. I don't like saying, "Oh, Leo, stay in the house 1 second while I put the bins out." It feels weird. It feels
you just
bad.
feel like you should be, looking after them, and like when we were on holiday at Butlins. That apartment was very, very safe. If we had locked all the doors, which you could lock...
Yeah, they locked from the inside.
We could have locked your kid inside and gone out, but we would never have done that. Every night, you or Jen stayed back, and me and Luce went out. You would never... So to me, it's just bizarre, and I always wonder, how do you get into the headspace where you're like, I'll just leave my 5 kids?
It is bizarre, it's really bizarre, and... Yeah, it's just crazy, and it doesn't matter how many times they go to check. In my mind, it's careless, and it is neglect. It's mental, and
also you're never going to go back as often as you say. How often did they say they're going back?
Every hour or so. I don't know how often they said they were going back, but they went back every hour.
I think they started off saying they were going back quite a lot, something ridiculous, every 10 minutes or something. I want to say, I could be totally wrong there, but they were on this really quick rotation. You're like,
you were not
can
doing
one
that.
of you just not go out tonight?
Yeah,
that's
really,
it. Yeah,
is it really that much? There's quite a few parents as well. Can one of you not just be at home?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It makes me angry. I think it's part of the British holiday culture. Is quite oh, fuck it, let's all just go out and
just go on holiday without your children, or don't go on holiday. Me and my partner, we'd fucking love to go on holiday to Portugal, and we could, and we'd go and have tapas bars, but we don't because we have children, and we can't just leave them in the hotel while we go and have drinks, you know what I mean? So we just don't do that. It's as simple as that.
Instead.
We go to Butlins and everyone has a great time. That's what we do. So... But what you're saying sounds perfect, because this is where the media and public view intertwines along with the investigation that's going on. And this is the reason why it's so big. in all three of these scenarios, they are, number one, they're completely innocent. She was just abducted. They didn't do anything. They weren't neglectful. People will say it's fine to leave your kids in a hotel room, whatever. They're not entirely innocent because they were neglectful when she was taken, or they killed her and covered it up. Regardless, with all three of those scenarios, everyone has an opinion on them, and it sent the world into a fucking frenzy. Everyone's in one camp, really, and it creates this huge debate of swirling controversy, which made this case massive because people are just completely torn. Personally, I think it comes from their status, perhaps. So, as I said, in my mind, they were neglectful, but I've spoken to people who said, no, it's just an accident, these things happen, they felt safe, etc. Now, I think if these two people weren't upper-class doctors and were, instead of Jerry and Kate, called Kerry and Jimbo McCann, and they worked at Asda and were on benefits and had Chelsea tattoos on the back of their heads, I don't think there would be a soul on this earth that would be batting for them.
Oh no, 100%. You're so right. You're so right.
Yeah, it's a class system.
Everybody. So, and make of that what you will, but it's very interesting. It's very complex. But everybody, the newspapers and public opinion, would not put them in that innocent category. You would assume they were neglectful, or that they killed her if they were called Kerry and Jimbo. See what I'm doing there?
I like it.
That's good, isn't it? Because if Kerry and Jimbo's kid went missing and it hit the news, it would have been, yep, she's gone, case dropped, see you later, we ain't never going to find her, happens every day, everyone forget about it in a couple of weeks. But Kate and Jerry, they have the money and the public backing and empathy, which has kept some form of investigation going for ages. And this is where the investigation part gets intertwined with that public opinion and the opinion of the people. I think there are people who are just so angry about this as well and say they were neglectful. Why does Jerry and Kate deserve millions and millions of pounds in taxpayers' money to find their daughter when there are thousands of missing children and parents who are completely forgotten about? Again, maybe it's because we're talking about Kate and Jerry and not Kerry and Jimbo, and I would be sympathetic to those people. So, I just want to say, as I sum this up as well, regardless of everything that I've said and my strong opinions and probably Seb's strong opinions as well at the disappearance of Madeleine McCann case, at the centre of all of it, there's a young girl who was taken and is probably dead. And that is really sad. That's a tragedy. And as a parent, I wouldn't wish it on anyone. Kate or Jerry, Jimbo or fucking Kerry, anybody. It doesn't matter. I wouldn't want anybody's kid to die in any circumstances or be taken or whatever.
Very good of you.
It is incredibly sad. Even if they were neglectful, it doesn't mean that you deserve it. Do you know what I mean? And I do think people get lost in that sometimes, and they sort of forget about that when they are arguing about their opinions on Kerry and Jit. You can hate them as much as you want, but I wouldn't wish it on them. Do you know what I mean? But I think that this case is the GOAT. Because all these years later, like 20 odd years later or whatever it is, nearly coming up to 20 years, there's new documentaries like in the last couple of years. There's new books, new opinions, new controversy, new media. Like, everything's always going on. We could sit and probably talk about this for the next hour and we would not come to any kind of conclusion. The frenzy that surrounds it, the opinions on the parents and whether they had any involvement, the fact that which is never going to be found. Like, the evidence is futile. There's basically nothing. There are a few sightings of random people saying they saw someone carrying a girl to the beach. Nothing's ever been concrete with this. There's no concrete evidence she was abducted. There's no concrete evidence it was a break-in. There's no concrete evidence that they drugged her and disposed of her body. There's literally nothing, and it should be done and like in most of these cases, they would have just been done and dusted. She disappeared. We're really sorry. There's nothing we can do. But this case lives on and lives on and lives on because of that controversy. Now, for me personally, what I think actually happened, and I was listening to the guy, he's like a private detective. He's the guy who exposed and caught Jimmy Savile. He's a fucking clever dude. And he went out to Portugal not long after she went missing and did his own private investigation. And he said it's probably most likely that she woke up, wondered where her mum and dad had gone, because they'd woken up the night before and cried and the parents came in or something. So Maddie'd woken up this night, wondered where they'd gone, managed to get her way out of the apartment, and a completely opportunistic stranger passing by, because it's a public road, just picked her up. And that was it. To me, that seems the most likely, but there's people that dispute that entirely as well, and it's just a complete mystery. But for me, it's the GOAT, because you can just talk about it forever and ever and ever.
Cool. Well, I think they're both incredibly strong picks. I feel like the Madeleine McCann thing is like you say, it's such an emotionally charged case, and I feel like as well with more, it's sad but true in the sense that I feel like with the Tupac killing, you kind of think because of the environment, because of the gangster rap scene, because they literally did almost beat a man to death 2 hours before or whatever. The murder seems more not fitting. It's not to say it's okay, but it seems more in keeping with the lifestyle that they were living. Whereas, how old was she? 3-year-old girl going missing like that is shocking. And I think it is one of those cases that still people have really strong opinions on and still get really wound up about as well.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely,
and I think,
get really wound up.
But it's also left me with an incredibly difficult decision to pick a GOAT, because on the one hand, I feel like Tupac's killing is a cold case in the sense that it feels like there's almost no semblance of a chance of it being solved at this point. Like, it was so high profile, and yet there is not a single, there's almost no shred of evidence. They haven't even worked out like where the car is, or like why, or who, or like there's not even like a.
Is there like a registration number of the car? I don't think there is. Like, they don't even know necessarily what weapon or anything, do
No,
they?
it's like a completely empty incident. This very, very high profile person died, and yet there isn't like a single shred of sort of evidence against it. And then on the other hand, you have, Madeleine McCann's disappearance, which it isn't the opposite, because again it's unsolved, but it's been poured over and is still poured over and still feels like very alive. And in a way, it almost feels the opposite of cold, because people are still talking about it and people are still bringing up new evidence. And there was that German guy who they seemed about, I think it was about 6 months, maybe even a year ago. The sort of word on the true crime street was like,
yeah,
it's him. Like, everyone's getting ready for a statement. They think that they found him, and then it wasn't, or they haven't got the evidence so far to suggest it was. And so it's such a difficult choice. Also a very morbid choice. The greatest missing or dead person of all time.
Come on, it's not nearly as morbid as the greatest hip-hop sample of all time, is it? That's way more like niche.
That was fucked up.
That was fucked up.
That was fucked, man. Do you know what? I think it's difficult. I don't even want to call it a GOAT, but it is a GOAT in that sense. I think the most, at least in our lifetimes, in our lived experience, I can only be a sort of subjective in this case, is it has to be the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. I feel like that's the case that we all know. I feel like culturally Tupac's killing probably is bigger, more people know about it, but in terms of a cold case, in terms of a case where you think is still going and there's still people looking for evidence but there's just nothing, I think it has to be the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. So yeah, Vinny, you're still on your losing streak, unfortunately.
That's the biggest mystery of this season, how Vinny's on such a...
It's like almost like Liverpool, like he was doing so well and then just totally flopped.
If he puts in a big shift in the Merseyside derby, he'll come back. I think he's sad because Kevin De Bruyne has scored. Is that right?
Yeah, I just realised that.
There's two things that are making me sad right now. Yeah,
What's
the
that?
losing streak and Kevin De Bruyne scoring.
Which one is making you sadder?
I don't know. They're both pretty upsetting. One's upsetting because it's in my hands and I'm still fucking it up. The other's upsetting because it's not my hands and there's nothing I can do to help it.
No.
No, you did a really good job, and I don't know if I would have thought of what's the word? I don't know if I would have thought of Tupac as a cold case. I feel like it's a bit like when I did Jaws as a movie monster. Although, did Godzilla win?
No, Jaws won that one as well. Which
Jaws
is
won.
Weird. Yeah.
Oh well, in that sense of like, I don't know if I would have thought of Tupac as a cold case, but it definitely is.
Definitely is. 100%.
So I just farted my way through that. I don't know if I would have thought of Tupac as a cold case, but it definitely is. And I think I actually didn't know as much about it as I thought I did. So thank you, DJ V-Dog, for bringing that to the fold. But another.
I think you're
win
just
for
getting
Arsenal.
unlucky. I think you're getting unlucky, Vinny, because I haven't Gandalfed it in a while. Like I done
I know.
Zeus and Madeline McCann.
Well, when you guys actually start trying, I start.
I'm
that's
pulling
when I
out.
start
I'm pulling
fucking
out the
up.
big ones. I'm pulling out the big guns. But next week when we do, goat, skateboarder, and I do Marty McFly.
Goat skateboarder.
The goat skateboarder.
Goat skateboarders, Tuss Pappas, obviously. Fuck Tony Hawk, son.
Do you know what
I think
though? This episode, if nothing else, and even the last 5 minutes, is just, you know, when people say football's more than a sport. Watching a happy young man and the colour just drain out of his face as he sees
Vinny?
Kevin. Yeah, as he sees Kevin De Bruyne net.
Mate, there's loads of time left in the game.
Oh fuck.
Arsenal will still be able to take a 3-point advantage at the top of the table, even if they lose this game, because they got a game in hand.
Vinny, why are you fucking?
Yeah, we go. Never mind. Sorted it all out. It's fine.
Did you think you'd lost the record or something?
No. It's nothing to do with that. It's just words being funny.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for listening to this slightly morbid episode. I feel like we've really pushed the boundaries on what we can call a goat.
No.
I feel like a goat dead person is right on the tippy toes of what we can get away with.
It's not the person, it's the case.
Exactly, and that's
Exactly.
what we'll tell our lawyers. Not that we have any, because we're too poor. So, on that note...
I've got a lawyer.
Links
Have
in
you
a
got a
Patreon.
lawyer?
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad's.
Yeah.
I guess he's my lawyer. He's
Yeah.
Can you imagine if he refused to represent you?
yeah, I don't have enough money to pay him.
It's just like, mate, you're fucked. I'm not
Could he
putting this on my
represent
record.
you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Is that not impartial?
but he shouldn't be impartial. He should be the definition of partial.
Oh, right,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's my
be-
defendant.
He
Yeah,
should be your
true.
defendant. He couldn't be the judge.
Yeah.
No. He couldn't be the judge.
Or the jury.
Or the
And
jury.
he also couldn't defend someone Vinny was trying to prosecute or whatever. He couldn't be the defendant or the prosecutor in Vinny's
Yeah.
case because he would have
Yeah.
a die. You know,
We should do that. We should set up like a lawyering ring where we sue people and then get our lawyers on their defense case to like deliberately lose and shit and just like scam like bare stuff and that.
stranger things have happened, man. It's real common, like especially in big business, like law. You know, small businesses will be represented by what they think is a firm that's on their side, and then it turns out that they're actually under the thumb of the other, like legal firm or something like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, enough about that. Thank
Everyone's
you all
getting
very
up
much
the
for
arse.
listening. Everyone's getting up the arse.
Talking about getting
And-
up the arse next week.
Goat genocide.
No, it's
Yes.
goat fetish. I
Yeah,
thought that
it's-
was
it's-
such a good
it's
Thanks
not-
segue.
for joining us next week.
Yes, so next week we have the return of our first ever guest, Amy Mayer, and I can't remember whether we're doing goat fetish or a goat sexy grab bag.
Let's do a
So
goat sexy
tune in.
grab bag.
Tune in to grab some bags and listen to us talk sexy things.
Oh yeah.
And In the meantime, don't
Sexy
forget
time.
that you can listen and watch most of our back catalogue on YouTube. You can also follow us on Instagram at _goat_pod. And if you're feeling particularly ball to the you can. I'm not going to do that. And if you're feeling particularly baller, you can pledge or donate or sponsor or just give us some fucking money on Patreon. So do that, and we will see you next week on this, which has been Goats, the greatest podcast of all time, aka the Thumbs Up Show. Love you, bye.
Love you, bye.
Love you, bye.